Hi, this is Aaron and Linda with Traveling Flamingo, and it looks like there's still some hope left for the Alaska cruise season. More mandatory vaccine requirements and more coming right up. We're going to summarize the past week in cruising for you, starting with Alaska. There's a lot going on with cruise lines and governments trying to keep the Alaska season going.
Yeah, with Canada announcing their cruise ban through to February 2022, it's left a lot of travelers disappointed, as well as local businesses who depend on tourism. And tourism is the third largest industry in Alaska, and cruising accounts for 90% of that tourism. So the Canada cruise ban is a problem because to cruise from the US to Alaska, you have to stop in Canada. And Holland America and Princess Cruises are a couple of the cruise lines that have been in Alaska the longest. And both companies are now actually taking reservations for guided tours and exploration in Alaska without being on a cruise ship. So there's also Denali rail tours and independent hotel and sightseeing packages if, Alaska is a dream trip for you.
Yeah, they had the Denali cruise tours when we were there last. I guess now it's just the Denali tour. So offering land tours is not completely new to these cruises. As we said, they've had stuff like the cruise tours before. But before it was attached to the cruise. So you'd go on your Alaska cruise and then you'd also go on this tour. Now the cruise lines will be safely bringing guests to explore the popular touring parts of their cruise just without the cruise. This might be a nice option for many people who have been dreaming of going to Alaska and are in need of a vacation. One of the benefits, you can still do many of the excursions like flight seeing. For those who don't know what flight seeing is, it's when you're on those amazing small airplane tours of glaciers. There's also nature tours and river rafting. However, a big disappointment would be that a land trip won't get you to Glacier Bay. That's the huge highlight. That was a huge highlight from our trip when we went. Hearing the glaciers crack, which I think is cavitation, there's nothing like hearing that. It's just amazing. Currently, these trips are being geared towards Americans, as many countries still have travel bans in place. There are a lot of travel requirements between Canada and US, for example, which makes it very difficult to visit. Things like quarantining, all the different swabs that you need and when you need them. And Canada now is putting you up in a hotel for 3 days that you have to pay for. So there's a lot going on with that.
Yeah, the flight seeing sounds exciting, but I think I'd be pretty scared to get in one of those little planes. I've never been in one that small before.
I'm sure some of you have. So if you have, both like this video and comment below.
Now, with that being said, there is still hope that there might be some cruise ship travel to Alaska on the menu for 2021. As we said, Canada has banned cruise ships from the ports until February 2022. However, there are some agencies challenging this decision in an effort to keep the Alaska cruise season alive.
The U.S. House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has sent a letter to the Canadian ambassador urging the Canadian government to work together to try to find a solution. The letter does highlight a few key points. One is the importance of public health and safety, and the other focused on the economy and how devastating another year without cruise tourism would be to the thousands of Americans and Canadians. One of their proposed solutions is that a cruise ship is allowed to stop in the Canadian ports. However, passengers do not disembark. This would allow ships to stop in a second country without having passengers in Canadian cities, which is I would say, a good compromise, but
another one of the agencies trying to challenge the Canadian cruise ban is the Alaska Tourism Recovery Act. This is actually a bill that suggests another workaround the Passenger Vessel Service Act, the PVSA, and which would allow sailings between Alaska and Washington without having to stop in Canada until the ban is lifted. And I feel like the letter really does lay it out. I mean, this has been the challenge the whole way along with COVID, is that you want to keep people safe, but by closing everything down, you affect the economy. So you're constantly trying to find the balance there.
Yeah.
And I think this is, the cruising has really been hit hard with a lot of this, and they've got a lot of negativity, and there's many different tourism things that have opened up around the world and around the US, and this is still it's not being allowed.
I always find it funny because if you look at Canada publishes whenever there's a COVID on an airplane, Internationally, domestically, it doesn't really matter. And I always find it funny when you go through that and it shows you row numbers of like people that have had COVID. And it's like, it's okay for the airlines to be going, even though there's, we'll show you, there's, pages and pages of COVID being detected on airlines and having to do the tracing and everything. But cruise ships, no, none.
Well, and I guess that's it. Like there is going to be a risk of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully with the vaccines, we're sort of getting into a different phase with all of this.
And even with the vaccines, there's still technically a risk of COVID.
Right.
Just you'll be vaccinated, so it won't, put you
Be
in the
as
ICU.
severe,
and
yeah.
Stuff, right?
I think that the other challenge is the U.S. is really pushing for Canada to allow cruising, but they don't have cruising right now in the States. So, you're trying to push to allow either a stop at the Canadian port or a workaround, the Vessel Act, and yet you guys aren't cruising either right now. So unless they really see that they think they're going to be hitting some of these, April cruising dates or what, but maybe this will all be futile because right now there isn't cruising in America anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty clear Canada's not entertaining it. And I'm pretty sure the U.S. is only going to entertain it once they get to the herd immunity stage. It's going to be my guess. Because we haven't really heard of too many cruise ships who are actually preparing to do anything. So we'll see, but that's kind of my guess. Thinking of vaccines, more cruise lines have announced that they will be requiring vaccines. We had talked about this a little bit earlier. Royal Caribbean has come out to say that starting May, cruises originating in Israel will require passengers to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19. This will be on board the all-new Odyssey of the Seas, so brand new ship that they're launching. The Odyssey of the Seas will sail to the Greek Isles and Cyprus. Israel has been very responsive with her COVID-19 disaster, and specifically with vaccines. They've inoculated 4.6 million people, with 3.3 million people having gotten both shots, at least as of yesterday. Since their population is only about 9 million, that means 50% of the population has had at least one dose, which is, great. It's impressive. So, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "Thanks to the millions of vaccines we have bought, I am proud that Israel will be the first country in the world to launch the Royal Caribbean flagship." In a statement released by the cruise line, Royal Caribbean's decision to come to Israel is a significant expression of our confidence in our policy. This is an important economic, touristic moment for the state of Israel. It does signal that cruise lines are looking to start up again, and they'll partner with areas that have high inoculation rates because they want that safety and security. So,
yeah, I think that's a pretty clear message, and from a cruise line as large as Royal Caribbean, that vaccines are going to be mandated. So, I think that we are seeing a lot of countries and a lot of people getting vaccinated, but you still come back to the argument of people who have that choice to not want to get vaccinated and what's going to happen there.
Yeah, absolutely. On some positive news, it does look like many world cruises are sold out for 2021, and cruise lines are rushing to add more for 2022 and onwards. These are cruises that can range from 50 odd days to over 200 days. Hopefully, as vaccination continues to roll out, it'll be able to open the summer season for cruising. Even though people may be hesitant to resume cruising, there's going to be a lot of future cruise credits set to expire, along with demand from people who just want a vacation. Even with all the downsizing from cruise lines over the past year, we've heard of a lot of cruise ships that have been dismantled. In 2019, there was about 28 million passenger availability, and that's set to reach about 32 million in 2022 and 39 million for 2027. And that's according to the 2001 Cruise Industry News Annual Report. And that's talking about how many sort of beds are available, how many rooms are available, but that's a pretty big increase even though we have been decreasing them.
Yeah, I think for a year without cruising, to try and be getting back this year, to say next year you're going to have millions more is quite impressive to show that there is still interest in the cruise industry. And as you said, I think you get disappointed and you get worried when you hear they're selling all these cruise ships off, but actually there is still a lot of availability and there's still a lot of great cruise ships coming out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's something like 108 cruise ships still in the development pipeline over the next couple of years. So that's where we add in all this new capacity. So you're going to have a lot of people with future cruise credits who are going to be trying to use those. And again, I think if they can manage the price point properly, you can have a good, cheap trip on a cruise for people who might be hesitant, like $600, and you can do a Caribbean cruise for 7 days. Like those types of things, I think will attract new customers also as we get vaccinated.
So thank you very much for watching. Let us know in the comments below, what are your thoughts? Were you somebody who had Alaska trip booked? And are you looking into these alternate options to try and get there this year? You know, what do you think of Royal Caribbean heading off to Israel? I'm a little bit jealous that they're going to get to go
Yeah.
on that new flagship ship, but you know, I guess FOMO, but that's all right. So please do like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments below. We really appreciate all your support. Thanks again for watching, and happy travels.